Hello, 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 it's Kimrix back with another video for Gigantic. I'm still trying to figure out what I want the channel to kind of end up as. I definitely want to cover the news and such coming out of Motiga about this game. Maybe even, I don't know, shoutcast some tournaments. But for now, I'm going to try something. In competitive gaming, it's very important that you always take a look back at what you've done and see where you can improve. And I want to take you guys on that journey with the videos I'm going to produce with this series. It's a way for myself and any viewers out there who are interested in playing this game to be able to grow, maybe even a little faster than usual. And I want to start with a game I had on Zenobia. I'll be putting a link to the build I used in this fight in the description below. It's one of my more common battle Zenobia builds. I find that it's really useful for pub play, because let's face it, the less you can rely on your team, the more you have to rely on yourself. And my battle Xeno build tends to be best for avoiding the salt. It'll work especially well here because of how the teams are set up. You'll notice that my team's set up a little more for melee squishy, and the enemy team is just a little more well-rounded. So going into the game, I have pretty much one goal in mind: spike my allies' damage where possible, and then otherwise defend them as much as I can, using my slows and weaknesses. This is certainly not a game where I'm going to be going for kills. As a side note, you just saw me pick my first ability while in the air. As you get a little more accustomed to the characters you can play, you should probably try to make that a habit at the beginning of every game. It'll minimize your downtime greatly. Now, this first engagement coming up is going to be a Wu diving in on a Taito who then gets followed up with a Gnosis. I'm keeping my distance here because my first instinct is that we really need to run. And using my abilities, I try to give Wu every opportunity to escape. Sadly, this is pub play. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have engaged as close as I did anyway, and it's definitely an issue I need to address. I keep looking into these moments where, like right now, I'm defensive. It's actually a better position where I'm at now. But then I move up like this, and it's just kind of horrible. Had that Gnosis gouged me and their team collapsed on me, it would have been over. Thankfully though, pub play. And in this bracket I have enough room to adjust my misplays. Now this is a pretty long engagement, and over the course of it, I used my anti-armor right click a little too much. I'm supposed to be using it to spike damage, but I'm playing in the style I used to, where I use it to bounce to people and then put bleed on them. It's a habit I'm still working to change. Alright, our first team engagement. Let me point out that a lot of this was just luck. I mean, this is pub play. Any synergy you might think you see here is just sort of chance. Like that right there. In the more average of pub games I've played, I don't really have allies that notice that there's AoE under them, that it's friendly, and that it's going to hurt the enemy a lot. I'm not saying that's what happened here. Most likely the Taito just thought, well, I'm gonna die, might as well die swinging, and he was rewarded with a two-man nuke that turned the whole tide of battle, giving us the player advantage and the point. I don't know how I feel about this Cyclops that's about to be summoned, but you gotta work with what you have. I certainly think it's better to have one on this point during the clash situation, but for now it's fine. It's durable, it's mobile, it chucks out launching AoE, it's pretty good. Now, during Wound on Xeno, unless we're completely dominating the enemy team, I tend not to move up. I usually leave that for the more mobile of characters, but I will position myself along an escape route for them. Sadly, there was no escape for my team this round. But the goal of this still stands. It's to prevent the enemy team from sweeping yours when they can gain energy. There was no way that HK was catching and killing our Taito, but I did want to feel like I was doing something. It did lead to my first death of the game, but whatever. Now in pub play on Siren Strand, you're going to find that most fighting happens around point D. And at this point on Zenobia, I felt confident that I could cover the flanks with her crowd control. And with our Cyclops down at this point, it's even more useful. A simple armor crack and launching deterrent forces Gnosis back down into the center aisle, right into the crosshairs of my team's Mozu and HK artillery. Sadly, my teammates felt a little bit of the bloodlust here and overextended pretty heavily. I managed to avoid that myself, but the pretty big swing in points we gained was immediately lost anyway, and it sort of sets the tone for the rest of this fight. Spoiler alert, this is a defeat, but let's press on and see what else I can glean from this match. I probably should have stuck pressuring in on F with my team. It might have allowed them to survive. I don't know why I was all that worried about B, as if we had killed F, it would have been an even trade. And if I was smart enough to read the kill feed, I would have seen that it was a Taito anyway, and Taito's not killing a bloomer that quickly. I could have prevented our Mozu from getting destroyed by that Gnosis there, and I also could have prevented our Wu from dying to the Taito. But at the same time, I'm not the only factor. Now at this point, the wound was pretty much a guarantee, so I went to position myself to intercept people. With my team coming off the airship, the enemy had no choice but to push past a person who was going to slow them, CC them, just anything to keep them close and low so that we could get some more points. And thanks to my efforts, we pull ourselves a 20-point lead. This leaves the enemy team 3 people down, which sort of forces them to have to regroup. Afterwards, it's a bit of a gamble trying to determine where they're going to go next. In a more coordinated game, we'd probably send a Wu to scout it out. But since this is a pub game, the easy money was on D, and it's become such a common strategy that even before the announcement on the minimap, my team was already rotating. Now, I'm glad I put my faith in my team to deal with whatever was around that corner, because it allowed me the opportunity to debuff and distract this HK, and eventually using his positioning to cut off the enemy retreat. Even here though, I was a little right-click happy. There was no reason to lower his armor as I was not going to be the one killing him. It probably would have been better just to weaken him than to turn towards the fight to throw out the anti-armor. That way our DPS could have spiked someone down a lot faster, making this fight so much smoother. But still, we came out on top with minimal casualties and regrouped. However, I really should have helped taking F. I find that my usual stance after making a play is to simply reset, and I think this comes from how fast the enemy team would respawn in the prior patch. The reality is, in the current meta, you can punish, and it's all the better if it's a tier 2 creature that you can punish. For those who don't know, each team has a limited amount of tier 2s that they can summon, and the act of summoning a tier 2 itself is the choice between either having the ult to use or simply getting a creature. At the very least, it would have been worth shaving it down to no health. That way, after the wound with almost no downside at all, someone can just go finish it off for an easy boost of 20 points. Definitely something I need to focus on. It's right up there with my occasional bloodlust moments that almost get me killed. In a game where every death counts, it's really just not worth it. And sometimes bailing when you're supposed to leads to interesting outcomes. And that about covers my play on Zenobia for this round. Definitely some room to improve. Sadly, winning and losing is a team effort in Gigantic. So throughout the whole course of events, it really did feel like there wasn't a way to turn it around. But it's games like these that make me want to create videos talking about these types of things. The enemy team kept pulling victories out against us during the wound phases, but it was always very close. Considering their team comp, there's a strategy that would have avoided this almost altogether. Bait us to D to keep us there, and then send Trip and Gnosis to our C point. It requires a little coordination and a little interaction. And between the burst and crowd control that the two of those have, that creature should be dead before anyone gets there. Free points as well as an easy way to make the enemy team have to do something. So things to focus on, things to keep track of. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding on when I need to bail, but it's starting to outshine my knowledge of when to stay in. I need to focus on paying attention to who absolutely needs my debuffs and when, and to just not spam them immediately, a trap I still fall into. Well, it looks like I've got some work ahead of me. I'll also be looking into this vodcast format a little bit. I'll be looking to refine this over time. Hopefully you guys learned something today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below. And if you're looking for more Gigantic content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm Kimrix, and I'll see you in the arena.